venit la o nouă ediție a emisiunii Ziua se apropie. În minutele care urmează vă prezentăm un interviu realizat de colegii noștri de la Christians for Israel cu Itamar Marcus, fondator și director al Palestinian Media Watch, care este și unul dintre cei mai importanți experți în ce privește autoritatea palestiniană din lume. În acest interviu, Itamar oferă exemple șocante despre modul în care sunt îndoctrinați copiii din autoritatea palestiniană pentru ca ei să caute martirajul. Drept urmare, mulți copii comit acte de teroare asupra cetățenilor israelieni și mor pentru cauza AP. De asemenea, prin intermediul organizației Palestinian Media Watch, se monitorizează mesajele autorității palestiniene care sunt trimise poporului palestinian pentru promovarea și glorificarea terorii. Ei scot la lumină adevăratul mesaj al AP și dezmint mesajele incorrecte. Itamar călătorește prin lume vorbind cu membrii Congresului, cu parlamentarii și cu reprezentanții guvernelor, prezentându-le constatările organizației sale ce au schimbat literalmente modul în care lumea vede autoritatea palestiniană. Vizionare plăcută!
Can you tell me what happened on that day, 7th of April 2023, and more important, what the reaction of the Palestinian Authority was to the attack?
On that terrible day, the D family, mother and her two daughters, were driving in the Jordan Valley. Palestinian terrorists shot at their car, caused them to crash. And then after their car crashed, they drove next to them, and at point-blank range, the terrorist stuck his head out of the window of his car, and he murdered all three of the women.
Yeah.
Two died immediately, one died a short time later in the hospital.
And it was all over the news, also in the Netherlands. Yeah. What was the reaction of the Palestinian Authority when this happened?
So when it happened right away, the Palestinian Authority was silent because they knew the word remembered. But we saw the true face of the Palestinian Authority when Israel tracked down the murderers and killed them. About a month later, the Prime Minister of the Palestinian Authority, Mohammed Shtaya, put a picture of the two murderers and their accomplice on his Facebook page, and he wrote, "Glory and eternity to our righteous martyrs." What is righteous about the murder of three people in cold blood? And glory and eternity. This is the Prime Minister. A lot of people make the mistake and think that it's only Hamas that glorifies terrorists and promotes terror. It is a big mistake. It's the Palestinian Authority that has been leading terror support literally almost since its inception, certainly since the year 2000 when they started the Intifada. The Palestinian Authority sets the tone.
Yeah, because it's not a single example. There is going on a lot more, and that's also the reason that you founded your organization, Palestinian Media Watch, in 1996. What was the reason for you to start the organization?
Israel had signed the Oslo Accords with the Palestinian Authority in 1993.
Some kind of peace accord, huh?
Yeah, supposedly a peace accords, and everyone said, okay, that's it. We don't have to worry about the Palestinians anymore. And we said, wait a second, let's listen to what they're really saying. Let's study their school books. Let's see what they're teaching their children. And as soon as we started following the Palestinian Authority in 1996, we realized that the whole thing was a farce. The Palestinian Authority would not be teaching the children to hate Israel, that Israel would be destroyed, to glorify terrorists, if they really were interested in peace. We started notifying the governments. We notified Israeli government. The Israeli media, which is very left-wing, refused for the longest time to accept what we were saying. No, it doesn't matter. It's just peace. It didn't matter. It was a tragic period because in the year 2000, just a few years after signing of the Oslo Accords, everything that Palestinian Media Watch was warning about happened. Yasser Arafat decided that he needed a terror war. He started what they call the glorious Intifada, lasted 4 years, 1,200 Israelis killed, mostly in suicide bombings. It all could have been anticipated if we would have listened to what they were saying to their own people.
You said you were warning people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There was an article, I remember, soon after the Intifada started, there was an article in in the magazine section of a newspaper, a 3-page article on Palestinian Media Watch, and the writer starts with a quote from one of the letters we had sent to all the members of the Israeli government, and then he writes, "It seems like the Israeli government was sleeping," and then he says, "No, they weren't sleeping, they were in a coma." It was so obvious this was going to happen to anyone listening, but there was a fantasy world that they had built about peace, and they weren't going to let the facts get in the way.
Right.
The same is happening today on the international scale. We show the international community again and again what the Palestinian Authority is teaching their children, what they're saying, how they're glorifying terrorists like the murderers of the D family, and the international community is looking for excuses for them.
Right. But you started in 1996. Can you explain what Palestinian Media Watch is doing in a nutshell?
So we use all the open sources to study all the messages that the Palestinian Authority is giving to their people.
Because you have a team of people who speak Arabic?
Yes, we have 10 translators, researchers. We go through today the social media, the official media, the social media of all the senior officials, the private Facebook pages of all the senior officials, their Twitter accounts. We want to know what messages they're getting out to the people. And when you study the messages like this one from Mohammed Shtaya, who's saying that that the murder of 3 people has eternity and glory, you realize that the Palestinian Authority is not a peace partner at all, but they are a terror organization, a terror supporting organization. They fit all the category of a terror organization, except that the international community is afraid to declare them as such.
Yeah, because if there's not a Palestinian Authority, then who should they talk to regarding peace between Palestinians and Israel?
Exactly, and I think that's the big mistake the international community is making. They think, well, it's better to talk to them than to no one, and I think the answer is, that's not true. It's not good for Israelis, and it's not good for Palestinians. The Palestinians need different leadership. If there was no Palestinian Authority, if it was allowed to collapse, there would come another leadership. Israel could step back and let leadership, the community leaders, the family leaders, the mukhtars of the villages, there could be created another leadership. You can't keep making deals. You can't keep talking and giving money to murderers and expect that something good is going to come out of it.
Yeah, we're going to come back on that later. If you look, because you're working now for Palestinian Media Watch for almost 30 years, what was like the most shocking or striking example that still is with you today?
I think the most striking examples are the terror glorification. You've seen the families, you've met the families who are mourning their children, and then you have the Palestinian Authority is just going out there and turning murderers of children into heroes. This has been going on for many years, and that's part of the shocking thing. And it's so horrific. It shocks every time, every time that it happens.
Yeah. One other example, and we have a picture of it, is an example from 2015, a boy that committed a terror attack, and then a sport event was named after him.
Yes, Ahmed Manasra, 13-year-old terrorist.
13-year-old.
13-year-old.
So really a kid.
Yes, a child. He went with his cousin, who was 14, and they just started stabbing people. They stabbed a 12-year-old Israeli boy, seriously wounded him. He recovered just in time for his, he didn't fully recover even today, but he recovered enough to have his bar mitzvah at age 13, his celebration. And Ahmed Manasra, the schools, Palestinian schools, a month after his terror attack, already had a tournament named after him.
A month after?
Yes.
And what were they saying? Why are they naming a tournament after a terrorist?
And if you look at the children, they're the same age as the terrorists. They're kids. And you say, of course kids are going to grow up to be terrorists, because when they're 13, they're participating in a sporting event, and the cup is the Ahmed Manasra Cup. That's the trophy. It's named after someone who stabbed Israelis. Well, every 13-year-old wants to be famous, wants to have a cup named after him. They're being told that being a terrorist is a Palestinian Authority value.
Is that happening more often, or is this really like exceptions going on in Palestinian media?
It has never stopped happening. For example, every year in March, on the anniversary of the most lethal terror attack in Israel's history. 37 Israelis were killed, 12 of them children. It was led by a female terrorist named Dalal Mughrabi. They came by boat, by rubber boat, from Lebanon, landed at the coast of Israel, hijacked a bus, and killed or injured everyone on the bus. Like I say, altogether 37 people were killed. The person who led that was Dalal Mughrabi, and every year on the anniversary of the attack, there are so many celebrations. There are TV stories about her. They talk about how glorious she was. They even mention how many people were killed. And without any shame, they present her as a hero. There have been 6 Palestinian Authority schools named by the Ministry of Education for Dalal Mughrabi. We've seen interviews on television with children from these schools saying, we're so proud to be in this school. We're learning to be like her.
And we have an example of that also. Huh?
Yes, and just recently, this year in March, there was another video on the anniversary of the terror attack, honoring her, glorifying her, presenting her, of course, as a super Palestinian heroine.
وخير مثال على عطائها الأخت دلال المغربي. ليس منا وليس فينا من لا يعرف من هي دلال المغربي، الشهيدة المناضلة الثائرة التي ضحت مع إخوانها من أجل الهدف المنشود الدائم وهو التحرير وعاصمة دولتنا وإقامتها الفلسطينية القدس.
So the video that we just watched is about Dalal Mughrabi, who committed a terror attack. How old was she when she did that?
She was in her 20s. And what we're finding today is that it used to be that we were worried about 20-year-old terrorists. Now we're having teenage terrorists all the time who are going on terror attacks. And they're not only going on terror attacks, but they're actually going out hoping to die as martyrs. Palestinian Media Watch has been finding that the Palestinian Authority is teaching its kids actively that martyrdom is wonderful, that martyrdom is better than life, that they should be killing themselves for the cause, for Allah, which is what martyrdom means. Shahada means dying for Allah. And what's happening this year more than ever before, and also in the end of 2022, is that kids are going on terror attacks, and their parents are appearing on TV the next day and saying his goal was to die as a martyr. One father said, he's been telling me for 2 years that he wanted to be a martyr. Another woman said on TV, all the young boys today want to be martyrs. The Palestinian Authority has destroyed their society. They have destroyed a whole generation of children. Instead of teaching children to grow up and accomplish, have a family, become successful, become productive for your people, they're telling them the most productive thing they can do for their people is to kill themselves in a terror attack and be a martyr. And this is a tragedy. It's a tragedy for Israel, but it's even a greater tragedy for the Palestinian Authority.
Yeah, because if we look at how they, in their TV channels, in their social media, how they address the children, or how the children are being brainwashed to be a terrorist, do you have examples of that?
So this year, we saw numerous summer camps that were shown, that were films on Palestinian TV, where young children, even age 7, were talking about or chanting about the willingness to die for Palestine. Young girls, same thing, chanting about the glory of Palestine.
We also have an example of that, of a very young girl in a radio studio. What is she saying there?
That's one of the most shocking ones we've ever seen. A young girl, apparently she wrote it herself, or someone wrote it for her. She's in the studio, and she tells a story about a boy who wouldn't finish his food. So the mother promises him a present. So when he brings the present, he sees it's a rifle. He says, "Why are you giving me a rifle?" And the mother says, according to this poem that the girl is reciting, the mother says, "Because you were not destined for happiness. You were destined for martyrdom. our weapon is Islam, and the children are the ammunition.
Let's go and watch it.
أقبلت أمه بطلة بهية تحمل الهدية نظر إليها فإذا بها بندقية صاح بأعلى صوته يا أمي يا أمي ما هذه أهذه هي الهدية ضمته إليها واحتضنته بيديها وقالت يا بني لم نخلق للسعادة فأنت في نظري مشروع للشهادة فالقدس لنا وسلاحنا إسلامنا وذخيرتنا أبناؤنا.
There is no worse a message that you can give to a child than to say that you have no value in and of yourself. You are only ammunition for another cause. You're nothing, essentially. You are nothing. You're a bullet in a gun. You are ammunition. That's what Fatah thought was important to tell their children, putting this on their Facebook page for their 300,000 young viewers to see.
Yeah, because how do they educate their children to such inhumane way of life, so to say it?
Well, they promise them, aside from telling them that they're ammunition, they also promise them rewards. So, for example, one of the shocking rewards that they do promise is they promise that if they die as a martyr, they're going to marry the 72 dark-eyed virgins in paradise. Now, people hear about this and they laugh about it. They think it's a joke. For the Palestinian population, it's not a joke at all. Their religious leaders see it. Their political leaders say it. There was a funeral of a young man who had died as a terrorist. While the funeral was being shown on television, they played a song in the background saying, "This is a wedding procession. Don't think this is a funeral. This is a wedding procession."
So everything is distorted, actually. The reality is distorted.
And then what we have is there was one father who described his 16-year-old son went on a terror attack in order to die as a martyr. And the father goes on TV. And 3 times he mentioned that his son wanted to marry. He kept asking me, when am I going to marry and like all the martyrs? When am I going to marry? And then the father said he'd been doing this for 2 years. In other words, what's going on is the Palestinian children who are in a strict Muslim society, the 16-year-olds, and they haven't ever been with a girl, they haven't ever touched a girl or dated a girl, and they're thinking, oh, and he's telling his father, I want to get married
It's
already.
like the ultimate goal.
That's right. But here the father is saying it about his own son.
Let's watch it.
والله يا عمر يعني شاب مقتبل العمر عمره 14 سنة يعني طالب مدرسة يعني كان دائما كل يوم يابا بدي استشهد يعني كل يوميا لازم يذكر الشهادة يعني حاط الشهادة بدمه إن شاء الله ربنا يتقبله شهيد.
الحمد لله إنه هو طلب الشهادة ونادى الشهادة وقال هذا اليوم عرسي امبارح راح حلق ويتحمم ولبس أحلى لبس وحط عطر وطلع وما رجعش.
So we have seen now a few of the videos of the many thousands that you have on your website, palwatch.org. So these are not incidents, but it's systematic indoctrination of the Palestinian people by their own authorities for so many years. So you collect all these videos, all these Facebook posts, you put subtitles under it in English, and what do you do next?
And then we bring them to decision makers around the world. Today we'll be going to the parliament in The Hague. We're showing this to the MPs, and we're asking them to go beyond just cutting off the funding. The members of parliament here and the government here a number of years ago actually cut off funding to the Palestinian Authority because of all the terrible things they do. We're asking them to go even a step further now. We want all the parliaments to have resolutions to declare the Palestinian Authority child abusers. For the Palestinian Authority, their reputation in the world is almost more important than money. because they don't care if their people suffer, they don't care if they run out of money. They don't want to have a bad reputation. They want Israel to be demonized, and they want themselves to be seen as heroic victims.
Right. So you say it's important to show the world that they're abusing their own children.
Yes, this is not even about in Israel. This is Palestinian abuse of their own children. Palestinians are killing their own children. Why? So that they can come to The Hague and come to Brussels, to the EU, and go to Washington and say, oh, our poor children are being murdered by Israeli. Look how many children were killed this year by Israel. Well, when we look into each case, one after the other, all these kids went out on terror attacks for the purpose of being killed. The parents are saying it.
Right.
So the Palestinian Authority must be condemned. They are murdering their own children, literally sending their kids to die so that they can be able to, so they can criticize Israel internationally.
Yeah, because you told us today, well, this is going to be broadcast later, but today the reason that you are here is because you're going to the Dutch Parliament. Tomorrow you're going to Brussels also to speak for the European Parliament. What do you hope to achieve from them? Just a condemnation or maybe more?
We'd like to brand the Palestinian Authority internationally as child abusers. We want them to be seen not as a legitimate organization, but as a terror organization that is even killing its own children. It's only when the world sees the Palestinian Authority for what they are that there's a potential for change. As long as the international community gives them the victim status, so you poor victims, go ahead, do what you want, we'll give you more money, then there's never going to be peace, not for Israelis, not for Palestinians. The first step is to recognize the Palestinian Authority are child abusers of their own children, they're murderers of Israelis. They don't deserve a penny. They deserve to be replaced by good Palestinian people who care about the people.
Yeah, but then there's going to be probably a few people who say, okay, I agree, Palestinian Authority is inciting to hatred and to terror. But on the Israeli side, there is also a lot of hate towards Palestinians. What would you answer to that?
There is no official government-sponsored hate on the Israeli side. There are fringes that hate the Palestinians, a small fringe. Most people who hate Palestinians don't hate Palestinians as people, they hate the terrorists. We are very much against terror. We're willing to hate terrorists. We're not willing to hate people. Any Palestinian, I mean, I work with Palestinians and other people. We don't hate people. We don't hate Palestinians. We hate terrorists and we hate terrorist supporters because it's destroying lives. And people have to differentiate. The Palestinians are taught to hate Israelis and Jews for hatred's sake. To kill Israelis and Jews. Killing Israelis and Jews is heroic and honorable and glorious. Their leadership tells them. Nothing like that exists on the Israelis.
Are there also voices in the Palestinian society who go against it, who realize that this is wrong and this should be changed?
There are people in Palestinian society who realize it's wrong, but there aren't voices because people who would condemn the Palestinian Authority will find themselves tortured in a Palestinian jail. You can't condemn the Palestinian Authority and expect to get away with it. So the people who care about peace with Israel, and there are many who are actually meeting privately with Israelis, and quietly with Israelis, and just want peace, the ones who are meeting with Israelis understand that Israelis care about them more than their own leadership. They realize Israelis want peace with them. Their leadership doesn't care about them. For them, they're ammunition for the selfish goals of their own leaders.
Yeah. So how is this going to develop? What do you think? Because you tell us, Europe is not seeing the problem. The UN is not seeing the problem. So how are things going to evolve, if I ask you?
We just have to keep showing them. First of all, they're recognizing the problem much, much more than before. And in fact, we're getting responses that, yes, we would cut off funding, we would let the Palestinian Authority collapse, but we're afraid what's going to happen without them. So there is a general recognition that the Palestinian Authority is the problem. In that much we've succeeded, that no one can look at the glorification of the murders of the D family and say, okay, these people are legitimate. Nobody. So there is a big growing recognition, but they're afraid to act on it. And the next step is when they realize that there's going to be a transition period. Transition might be stormy, might be a little bit crazy.
You mean transition in
from the end of the PA till the replacement with decent leadership for the Palestinians. We don't want to let Hamas come in. We'll have to somehow, I say we, the international community more than Israel, because Israel has been so demonized, they wouldn't really want to get help from Israel, but the international community has to help create a different leadership. That's it. They have to recognize this leadership has destroyed the lives of the Palestinian people since Yasser Arafat came from Tunisia. They've destroyed their lives. And they have to be replaced by other leaders. And the international community, who are the big funders of the PA, they could bring about.
Yeah. Last question, because you've been doing this work for almost 30 years, all the research in hatred. How do you get your optimism to go on? Do you have optimism?
Yes, of course I have. I have tremendous optimism. This is long term. There had to be, like I said, a few stages. First, recognition of the problem. Today, the world recognizes the problem. They're afraid to act. So I feel like we have one more hurdle. Sometimes I hear European leaders say, "Oh, their school books are no good. Their TV's no good. They're this," and I'm saying, no, these aren't the problems. These are the symptoms. The symptoms, these are just symptoms. The problem is the PA itself is rotten to the core. And if you think you're going to fix it by fixing the school books, that's just one symptom. You have to get away from the cancer, which is the root. That's right, which is the Palestinian Authority.
But you're optimistic.
Yes, because I believe that eventually the world will appreciate that.
Yeah.
Emisiunea Ziua se apropie, se încheie aici. Vă mulțumim pentru atenție și vă dăm o nouă întâlnire săptămâna viitoare la aceeași oră. Sunt Codruța Burghelea și vă spun la revedere, Dumnezeu să vă binecuvânteze!